Carolina states.
Welcome to The Ride with Chevy and Nasty. Host Randy Chevrier and Sheldon Napastia guide you through great stories that spark great conversations. Two really big guys talking a big game. The boys are locked in and ready to go. Welcome to The Ride.
And welcome to The Ride, everybody. Tuesday night, 10:30. Chevy and I are on time. Trey's got us all set up and ready to go, and I think we have a good one for you tonight. Before we get started, I just want to thank our sponsors that make this ride possible. We've got Performance Freight Management, YYC Calgary Business Group, and of course, We Drone Real Estate Media. Couldn't do it without you guys. We appreciate it. And Chev, episode 58. Who do you got for us tonight for number 58?
Episode 58 tonight. We looked up some former teammates. We look at Brander Craighead there from the Calgary Stampeders is one of them. Also a guy that played with both of us, Tyler Linham, draft pick from the UFC. He's not on the pictures here, but Tyler played defensive tackle coming out of UFC. Had a really good career in the UFC. Never really caught on as a D tackle, but played offensive tackle for a couple of years with the Stamps, and he got the start. He became a starter, played really well, and then retired. And I've bumped into him now and again. I think he does financial stuff in Calgary, but not everyone wants to play 40 years like I did. Some people want their cup of coffee. They want an opportunity to do something great, and then once they do it, it's like time to go. And that was Tyler Linden. But we also have Jack Lambert. One of the great 58s, Von Miller with the Broncos there, 58, and then Derek Thomas, one of the greatest defensive ends ever in the NFL. Died unfortunately in a car accident. But Derek Thomas, I didn't know anything about the Kansas City Chiefs back in the day, but I did know about Derek Thomas. Before we get to where we're going tonight, just want to remind everyone, we dropped our episode yesterday, the interview we did with Maven Maurer. Again, if you're just tuning in, if you were under a rock, not following any of our social medias, Maven Maurer used to be Mike Maurer, 12-year CFL vet, 2 Grey Cups, once named most outstanding Canadian in the Grey Cup, military service, fire service, super fascinating human being. Transitioned to a female, went public, I guess, in October, November, when she showed up to her BC Lions 2000 Grey Cup Hall of Fame reunion. But we had a chance to sit down with her. It was a fascinating interview. Nasty's former teammate, and we dropped that yesterday. I got to tell you, the feedback we've had on that episode has been fantastic. I got to tell you this personally. I think since the episode dropped, I've had 5 people reach out to me and just thank us for doing the show because they have someone that is trans in their life, whether it was a brother or sister that I've heard, or kids. And because our show wasn't very political, didn't make a political statement, it just told the story. They were thankful that we're telling stories like that because it helps them in what they're going through. It helps their person understand that some people do view them as human being, because you know what? The noise out there could be a lot of noise and dehumanizing to people going through a real journey in their life. So great job, Sheldon. Great job, Trey, producing that. And again, if you haven't had a chance to listen, you can go to YouTube. You can go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I do believe we are now on Google. No, what is it? Amazon podcast. We've been upgraded. We're making the big leagues. We're gonna get the logo up there. But yeah, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, X. But you can get those podcasts on the bottom there, Spotify and Apple Podcasts, all that. What have we got going on tonight, Nasty?
Oh, I'm not sure. Let's take a look. Trey, why don't you pull up that slate for tonight? Of course, as always, we're going to kick it off with our 300-pound poultry here just in a minute. But I don't think we can go on an episode and not talk about what's going on in California right now. If you remember last week, this was just sort of breaking news around, in the late afternoon, right before the show. By 8:30, they were losing control of it. We're going to talk a little bit about what our friends down in California are going through right now. And of course, second segment, along with the Blitz, we're going to break down a little bit of NFL wild card weekend and take a look at the games coming up here in the next week. And we're going to finish it off tonight, guys, with a little bit of studs and duds and a little bit of what not to do when you're flying commercial airlines. You're not always that special, and you might catch a flight attendant on a bad night. Anyway, MMA legend gets booted off a plane. We're going to break that down and see how Chevy and Nasty might have handled that differently. As you all know, Chevy's probably the more likely of the two of us to get kicked off of a flight because he's the guy that puts his seat all the way back and he takes his shoes off and puts them up in front, drives Rubio nuts.
Well, that's why I won't take an exit aisle, because I want to put the seat back in. Those seats don't go back. But we'll talk about that later. Trey, let's cue up the 300-pound poetry.
And now, 300-pound poetry with Chevy and Nasty.
After a return to the airways last week, we're back this Tuesday night on your ride with Chevy and Nasty. Most times we try to keep it light.
But the fires in LA County have us deeply concerned. With so much destruction down there, will there be any lessons learned?
The firefighters work through the night in a seemingly an impossible endeavor. While more and more people get evacuated, their lifelong possessions are gone forever.
And 25 people dead, 60 square miles of land charred, the destruction of 12,000 structures. For decades, California will be scarred.
The NHL postponed a match while the NFL relocated a playoff game. All that seems so insignificant now, as life for many will never be the same.
We are Chevy and Nasty. We are praying for LA. We hope the winds die down and they get some rain.
There you go. Yeah, that's something we didn't even talk about that last week, Chev.
Last week, the news of the week was Justin Trudeau resigning after he went down to Mar-a-Lago, talked to Trump. That was the big hit of the news. Right after we went to bed, we put the show to rest. We woke up the next day, Wednesday morning, and boy, did the Western Northern Hemisphere get a rude awakening in California, especially, eh?
Well, and that's something, Chef, because we've got, obviously the same thing going on in Alberta, because we have, and British Columbia, we have millions upon millions upon millions of acres of forestry lands, and the same thing is the never ending question about how do you manage your resources and how do you keep what is essentially living in a tinderbox. But the difference between us is we are so remote in a lot of those areas. It's rare that a Jasper or one of our major centers gets hit. LA's freaking dense, dude. Yeah. And when those winds start kicking up, like there were 90-mile-an-hour winds last Tuesday night. When those winds start kicking up, you're a fire guy. Is this like Armageddon worst case scenario that you could imagine?
You got to peel back. I mean, everyone talks about climate change and talk about, the reservoirs being empty and the budgets of the fire service being depleted. All of that aside, whether, that happened or not, you have a very real situation where the winter rains did not come. They typically have rains around, December, January. They did not come. And it's already dry as it is in Southern California. I've lived there. I lived there on a couple of occasions in Orange County. I lived in San Diego County, but I spent a lot of time in LA County. Very, very dry historically. But this time of year, they usually get some sort of moisture in January. They did not get that, and those Santa Ana winds that they talk about is usually prevailing winds coming from any cold fronts out of the east. It's sort of, and those Santa Ana winds are the same winds that we get up here that we call Chinook winds. They're more powerful because the mountain ranges are lower down there as opposed to up here. But
civilization's right at the base of those mountains.
And civilization is right at the base of the mountain. They have such a huge population down there. They have, I believe it's 20 million people in the LA Orange County area, with about 10 million people in LA. And they call that the urban wildlife interface, that section of land where treed areas, heavily forested areas starts to interface with urban environments. And we see it here in Alberta. Like if you think about our territory where there's a high urban wildlife interface, you'll see it sort of maybe in Canmore. You'll see it in Bragg Creek, where our good friend Rob Evans is, right?
Jasper,
Jasper, but that's more of a wildlife interface. It's not really urban encroachment into the city. And because, where we live, Calgary,
urban encroachment into the forest. Is that kind of what you're talking about here?
That's kind of what I'm getting at. And again, because Calgary's in the plains, you don't see that too much. Sure, you'll get wildfires, and that urban encroachment is going to happen in some of the smaller hamlets. Like, a couple of years ago, they had the fires north of Calgary. When you talk about Fort McMurray, that's an area where they've built the city into an area of land that's heavily treed, and there's going to be sections of that land that's going to interface with the wildland. And if it's not properly managed, if it's not properly cleared of dead vegetation in those dry, windy climates, all it takes is a spark to cause that. Now multiply that by 10 million, because that's what that urban wildlife interface looks like. In LA, you've got basically.
Why do you call it wildlife? Why are you calling it wildlife?
Wildland. Sorry, wildland.
Gotcha.
Wildland. Excuse me. So you've got basically desert to the east, and then all of a sudden you get some vegetation with those Hollywood hills. Everyone's talking about the Palisades, the hills, and then right below those hills is literally all of LA.
Yeah.
And when you got that wind, those dry conditions, and whatever sparks the fire. Now we can go back. It could be a train going by, pumping the brakes, and the spark going by. It could be Maven Maurer just conducting the train, hit the brakes, spark flies, boom, it lights up.
You're not.
What's that?
You're not putting this one on Maven, though.
No. I'm just saying, Maven's a train conductor. It could be any. Could be a camper, could be an urban camper. We have so many homeless people living down there, living in those conditions. You start a fire, you don't put it out, there's a spark, it travels, the wind blows, and then next thing you know, it takes up that whole wildland space. But because it's so close to urban areas, you get the situation where that 40 to 70, 80, 90 mile an hour winds is pushing those embers so fast. You saw some of the imagery, right? It looked like
crazy
snow. And so that's the conditions, that are happening down there. And as a firefighter, until things settle and until you get some moisture, even containment is almost impossible. Like it's a drain on all resorts.
And they talked about that a lot. And it seemed like that first night was like the perfect storm of the worst possible conditions. Like, first off, when you've got 90 mile an hour winds, you're not taking up a big heavy helicopter that's got to dump a load, and you got winds coming down a mountain at 90 plus miles an hour. Aircraft just can't respond to that. But they even had to ground some of their bigger planes. So that first night they had zero support from the air. Second thing, I think it was something where around 3 a.m, firefighters are plugging into fire hydrants, connecting and turning on the tap and just getting drips. Like we've all had the forget your skates dream. My dreams, I show up to the job and I don't have a helmet. But as a firefighter and a first responder, where you don't have air support, you've got to get out there. You see it burning, you know what you're up against, and you don't even have water. What was going on there on site? Does your, I don't know if your chief's on site with there or whoever's in charge of the site, what kind of calls are you forced to make at that point? Sorry, boys, we don't have water. Let it burn. Let's go find another spot.
Well, in a situation like that, it's get everyone out. That's why the evacuation orders are there, because they're unfortunately outmanned and outgunned and out-resourced. I mean, city fire hydrant cities are not meant to fight urban wildland fires. You can't. When you got 68,000 hectares of land burning, no amount of water that you can put in a hose is going to put that out. You can't cool that. Mother Nature's the one that escalates it. Mother Nature's the one that's going to put it out.
Yeah.
And those city fire hydrants are designed for structural firefighting. They're designed to support, hey, listen, there's a fire in this area of town, in that building. There's a fire over there. There's a fire over there. Yeah, we can handle that.
Yeah.
But when you've got, basically a fire the size of Northwest Calgary coming towards you, it's get everyone out and pray. I mean, they're doing their best, but there's not much they can do. And huge props. I mean, obviously I'm in the fire service, and sometimes it's kind of like, when you're a pro athlete, being a pro football player, we don't see other pro football players the way the fans do. Well, when you're a firefighter, you're not like, yeah, we're heroes. But gosh, I'm looking at those guys and gals working through the night. And, with the amount of equipment, like when you use wildland fire gear, you're not wearing the big face piece with the air mask to make you breathe clean air, because wildland, you got to be quick, you got to be nimble, you got to be able to move, and structural firefighting gear is not designed for that. But you got firefighters fighting in structures or beside structures, because I don't think they're going into too many structures, with very little respiratory protection. And the fires that are burning have all those carcinogens and all those toxins coming off those homes, like entire neighborhoods burned down.
It smells different. I mean, I grew up in the country. I know prairie wildfires, and I know it, like when those run away, what they smell like. But I've also been 3 doors down from my neighbor's house burning down. Yep. And it's a different smoke. I mean, you're smelling wires and metals and plastics and rubbers.
All the petroleum products that they use to bind the wood these days. So you got firefighters putting themselves not just in harm's way of the flame, but people don't realize that them going with an N95 mask, if that's what some of them are wearing, is not going to protect them from everything that's coming off. I mean, we're talking about 70-mile-an-hour winds, and they're throwing water on a structure that's burning. Even though they're not inside, they're inhaling some of that. And it's huge props to them. Prayers to people out there, because you know what? It's going to take a ton to rebuild, and the people that are helping out there, huge props to them. It's a really tough situation.
So along with some heroic efforts, I mean, I was hearing about guys that were basically awake for 4 straight days. I'm sure they got a couple of nods because along the way, but I mean, I couldn't imagine fighting through those conditions, but you're defending your home turf. But out of that, so there's some really heroic stories coming from the firefighters and the pilots, even people ignoring, and I know you shouldn't do this, but ignoring the evacuation orders and staying on there, banding together and fighting. I watched this one group of neighbors that they showed the entire coming down the hill, every house burned up till theirs, and they stood up and they fought it. Just incredibly heroic efforts. But you know what? Here's another one, and we keep bringing this guy's name up, sometimes as a stud, sometimes as a dud. But do you ever feel like Elon Musk is like kind of like the modern day Batman? What's your superpower, Elon? I'm rich.
Yeah.
And here he is. And it doesn't matter if it was Ukraine, North Carolina with the hurricanes, or now in the Palisades Hills. If there's a need and he's got the technology to make a difference, he does it. He came in there a couple of days ago with just lines and lines of his cyber trucks.
Yep.
Taking his signals from his satellites and pumping out wireless. What kind of impact do you think that has on it? And is Elon, do you see him as is he doing this for publicity and press, or are you seeing him as kind of like he is a modern day Batman? You know what?
And I'm the first guy to say that I'm not the biggest fan, but I respect him. He's done so much on one hand and there's so much on the other hand. It's hard to know where he lies. He's quite an enigma to me, because he seems to be an agent for chaos, and there's positivity to his chaos, because through his chaos, he figured out how to launch a rocket and land it on the earth. That's chaotic thinking that gets you there. But that also, that other chaotic thinking is the stuff that, it's kind of the world domination stuff. But in this particular case, like you said, in Ukraine, he sent a whole bunch of drones. When those kids got stuck in the mine in Thailand, he got them out. He helped with the technology to get them out. Anyone in rural areas that now has Starlink internet that works and is reliable, way better than what it was 20 years ago, they have a reliable.
His changes to X is even changing the way that Facebook and Meta operates. I don't know if you saw that in the last.
Yeah, no, I saw that. But on this specific case, what a great idea. He told all his people, hey, I know you're waiting for Cybertrucks. You're not getting them right away. I'm repurposing them. They're going to go be parked in LA County. And I don't know how he's setting it up in a grid system or whatever. And they're going to be providing internet for those folks on the ground. And I mean, communication in a situation like this is one of the most vital pieces to keeping people alive. Not fighting the fires, but to keeping people alive. Because if those winds shift, if something's coming that a group of firefighters don't see and they can't communicate, you know what? You're right. This is a Batman, Bruce Wayne, maybe a Lex Luthor type moment. You know, Lex Luthor was that billionaire guy that did things in one hand to show everyone that he was really good philanthropist, but in the end, he's still trying to kill Superman. So maybe,
but so did Batman.
Yeah,
right. Like we got to look over a few flaws here. I will say this: no other evil genius, and I'm not officially calling him an evil genius, but I can't think of another genius in our time that's been able to step into this many high-profile emergencies in this short amount of time and just give people what they want. The only thing I'm going to say is, guys, if you're drone operators, if you've got a consumer drone or a pro drone or a mini drone or a kid's drone, keep them grounded when you have an emergency going on. First off, it's illegal. There's up to a $30,000 fine, I think, from the FAA, 25 to
75,000,
75,000.
I believe 6 years prison time if they find the people that flew their drone into the Canadian water bomber.
We sent up 2 and they grounded 1 like the first or second night. So
now there's
don't be that guy. Hey, Chef.
We got to take a break. But before we go, we'll say again, really thinking about those people in LA, because the real human story after Elon Musk and everyone leaves is there's going to be thousands of people without homes. And because a lot of the insurance companies refuse to insure them for fire damage, there's going to be a lot of people without any sort of net to catch them. And we're going to see some real social help being needed in California, in the LA County coming soon. Again, they always say, oh, the Hollywood stars will be okay. And maybe they will, maybe they won't, because loss is loss. Doesn't matter if you're a rich Hollywood person or not, but there's going to be some people, everyday people, that will have nowhere to go and no insurance from this fire. So we're thinking of you guys in LA. We hope the flames end and the rebuilding can start, but we know that's by tomorrow morning it might get worse, and that's a sad thing to be able to say. It's not getting better anytime soon, which is unfortunate. We can't say that tonight, but we're gonna take a break. We're Chevy and Nasty. This is The Ride, every Tuesday live on 10:30 p.m. You can find us on Facebook, X, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. You can check out the podcast tomorrow. We'll be downloaded Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We're so thankful that you joined us here. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll get into the sports mode with some NFL.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
Do you want your business to be known? YYCCalgaryBusiness.ca is Calgary's only online media platform that gets you noticed. Short-form video content is rapidly taking over as the most effective way to engage your audience. Whether you're being interviewed on a vodcast, sharing a sizzle reel, or even hosting your own show, there is one place you can publicize your business. We want to tell your story and introduce you to our network of empowered business owners and leaders right here in Calgary. Isn't it time you took your digital game to 11? Call us or email us now.
Hey, he's still there. Welcome back to the ride with Chevy and Nasty. Sheldon is getting adjusted. Thank you for joining us. Sheldon, where'd you go? We lost you for a second there. Getting some water. Welcome back. We talked about the Fires, but now it's time to talk about sports. Last week, we did our little bit of NFL playoff preview heading into Wild Card Sunday. Sheldon, I'm a little surprised. I thought there were going to be some underdogs pulling through, and I've come today with my tail between my legs to admit I was categorically wrong about last week. I really thought we'd have an upset. We worked backwards. We said, hey, the Lions and the Chiefs have the first round bye. Can anyone beat them? And I thought, well, okay, if it's not those guys, who can it be? And the two teams that I picked that could potentially go far as underdogs, they kind of choked. When the Broncos was one, I picked. And I thought maybe they could get hot with their defense against the Bills. 31.
They were looking so good. I mean, that's the thing. Everything we're seeing leading up to the wild card weekend. Honestly, the Broncos were looking good. It was one of those things. Defense wins championships. Well, let's see, right? And I guess we saw.
I'm laughing. I'm reading Rubio's comment here. He says, "Is anyone going to ask why Nasty's wearing one pair of glasses on his face and one on the top of his head? Is that what's happening here?"
I was wondering where they went. I was late. Okay. Good call. Yeah, I deserve that.
Good call, Rubio. But yeah, no, I thought the Broncos could give something. I was excited. You know me. I love the underdogs. I love the underdog story. Whenever we pick teams, I always try to pick the underdog until my pick gets scooped for me live on the air when we're at the Grey Cup championship game, but that's okay. But the other one that I thought the Buccaneers were going to win, and they're not really they weren't an underdog going into that game. They had the better record. They didn't have the better record, but they had home field advantage. And I thought Baker Mayfield was going to pull it off. He's been my stud for a number of weeks. I'm really, really enjoying his style of play. He reminds me of the old school, tough, like Jeff Garcia type quarterback that, when things don't, he's not just a running quarterback. He's a running and bruising quarterback, like John Elway back in the day. And you saw it. Yeah, you saw it on Sunday. He had that one run where he took it into his hands and he beasted three guys. One of them all pro Bobby Wagner, Trey.
Well, after the first down, wasn't that like after first down yards?
Yeah, like there's no slide in Mayfield, and I thought, God, that's the quarterback you want to lead your team. And I have to say, the Commanders just fought all game, and Jaden Daniels, he looks legit. I mean, 268 yards passing, 2 DDs, but he spread that ball around so well. And when the Commanders won, I was kind of like, well, I guess they deserved it. So yeah, I don't know. I like
Tampa Bay looked great, but what the Commanders did was special. I wasn't expecting them to look that strong. I was with you on that one. I thought Tampa Bay would take care of business, but I'm the same. I think my hero call I thought the Vikings might be able to do something, but God, was I wrong with that?
That was one that disappointed me. Like, I didn't know who was going to win that game, but man, you go to a Monday night, you get a first Monday night football game, playoff game between two pretty decently matched teams, and the Vikings laid an egg. It was terrible.
It was awful.
Rams got 9 sacks in that game, and they deserved to win, and the Vikings deserved to lose. But yeah, everything else, the Eagles did what I thought they would do. Again, the Bills, did what I thought they would do. I just didn't want them to do it. And then the other one that I thought would be a bit more of a matchup was the Ravens and the Steelers. And again, the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, just showed who they were. So we go to this week, Sheldon. We go to this week, and we got the divisional round coming up. Who do you like? Who do you like in these matchups?
I'm boring this week. Like I'm going. What I saw last week is the best teams are usually your best teams. So the Commanders, very interesting, but with a rookie-esque quarterback. Can they take out the Lions? I've got the Lions, and I'm going to go the Eagles. And quite frankly, the same thing in the AFC. I love what CJ Stroud did and that Texans defense, but will it be enough to stop Mahomes? No. I mean, that one probably won't be a game. I hope it's exciting. The Bills in Baltimore. Can you see the Ravens doing anything against Buffalo? I mean, I got Buffalo kind of all the way here, right? But I don't know. If there's one game that I hope to be an absolute thriller, it's going to be Baltimore in Buffalo.
That's all I'm hoping for too, because everything else, I don't know if the Washington game would put me to sleep. They got two pretty good coaches that are a little bit of a risk taker. Dan Campbell in Detroit is known to make some questionable calls that cost his team. So he's good for one or two of those in a game, which could definitely give the Commanders an opportunity to do something. So I think that'll be a good game. I think Baltimore Buffalo would be a really exciting game. The Chiefs, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they are going to steamroll the Texans, and then Philly, LA. Well, there's a reason I think LA could take it, and we'll talk about that later. But I'm not too excited. What I need this week is I need a team that I can bandwagon for the next week. I got no team that, like, right now I'll pick the Chiefs and I'll pick Detroit just because they are, but I want a team that excites me. I want a team that goes in this week and wins in a way that's exciting, which means don't blow out the team, because then I won't bandwagon for you, but make it exciting, play hard. The other team has to be part of, like, it has to be a good game, and then I can take notice. But I'm not really excited about this week. There's nothing
and that's sad, isn't it? Because, like, for me, like, a wild card weekend, I usually get so excited about. Last year, you talk about the underdogs. Well, you had Green Bay, Detroit, you had Stafford coming on playing better than you thought he would. You had
Brock Purdy
coming on, Tampa Bay. And this year I was not inspired. I was left a little bit disappointed this weekend.
Yep, same.
But you know what? It's a long playoff season, right? So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens next week.
Yeah, and who's disappointed this week is former head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, Mike McCarthy. He just got fired, I guess. So that's another coach on the chopping block, another job open. Now, we talked last week, jobs that are open. You talk about the Raiders job, the Cowboys now job, Bears, who else we talking about? Jaguars.
Yeah, the Jags, the Bears,
the Jets.
Looking at the Jets, obviously. Yeah, the Jets, yeah.
So in order of least to most, which is the team you would least want to go to of all these teams now that the Cowboys are in there? Is it still the Jets?
You know what? Yeah, it's still the Jets. Because Dallas intrigues me, because here's what you're going to get from going to Dallas. You're going to be famous, right? You're going to get a lot of talk. You're going to, in terms of career progression, you can even go in there and not have big success, and you could still pass that on, blame it on Jerry Jones. Right. I got an owner that meddles. What we talked about last week was ownership. If I'm choosing a job, it's got to be based on stable ownership, unless it's a Jacksonville job where I just want to not pay any state income tax.
Right.
But Dallas would be an awful career trajectory, except for the fact that you're going to get a lot of airtime and a lot of people are going to hear your name. Does that help? Yeah. Does that make you more money? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I still think the Jets is the worst job. Trey pointed out that the Patriots went from one defensive coach to another defensive coach and hiring Mike Vrabel, former Patriot. I don't know if that's a good move for the Pats. I guess they like their defensive guys, but you went for a defensive coach and you fire him after year one. I mean, I don't know. I would have held out for someone with a little bit more offensive savvy. But obviously they again, when they hired Mayo last year, they probably felt the same way they do about Vrabel. So I don't know about that Patriots move. It just seems too, you remember the Oilers, and they went through that stretch where they just kept hiring the old Oilers, doing it the old Oilers way, and you could see that train coming.
Are you referring to the at the same time the Calgary Flames kept hiring Sutters and anybody that's ever dated or married?
Yeah, the Sutter, but the Oilers, the Oilers seem to have perfected it with the Kevin Lowe's, what's it, McTavish. It just seemed to be that revolving door of ex-Oilers trying to make it the old Edmonton way, and sometimes that works, and sometimes that doesn't. And right now the Patriots are 0 for 1 in doing it the Patriot way. So I don't know. We'll see how.
There's a side of me that gets excited. I mean, if you hired a Vrabel or a Teddy Bruschi or a Ted Johnson or any of those old legends from the 2000s, right? Like they had some great defensive.
Yeah, Tom Brady.
But that's an offensive mind. And Tom Brady's got too good of a job right now to ever want to put himself into the coaching arena.
Well, and he owns a portion of the Raiders, so he's never going back.
There's
that. And Bill Belichick, he's at UNC, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But yeah, the coaching vacancies are interesting. One of the coaching vacancies that may or may not come up is Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. Now, Mike Tomlin is only the third coach for the Steelers since 1969. Yeah. Now, if you get fired or if he gets fired in Pittsburgh, is that an attractive job for a coach? Because that they don't just roll through guys.
No, Pittsburgh? No. Yeah. No, they've got the Pittsburgh way. They bring in quality people, they invest in them, but they do all of their vetting up front. And that's one of the things I think we talked about it too after Jets coach was fired earlier this season. In that same stretch of time,
Robert Saleh,
when like Pittsburgh was gone through 3 coaches and the Jets have gone through like 17, 12.
Yeah.
Like it's just ridiculous. Pittsburgh does it a different way though, and they always do it the Pittsburgh way. Back to Dallas. They do it the Cowboys way, but that's
the Jerry way.
Jerry Jones, that's Jerry's way, right?
That's Jerry world. When you go to Dallas, you're going to Jerry world. And the only guy that it's going to take a personality. The only guy that had some personality to stand up to him was Bill Parcells for a while there when they had a bit of success with Tony Romo. But other than that, I was with the Cowboys, Dave Campo. They had a number of head coaches that it just didn't work. And Mike McCarthy, another good coach, it just didn't work. And, they pin a lot of their hopes on Dak Prescott. And, we'll see who the next guy is. One of the guys that I think might be in line for this job, depending on how far they go in the playoffs, and I got a sneaking suspicion he'll get an interview, is Washington Commanders, Cliff Kingsbury. You'll recall, if you really recall way back, he was backup quarterback to Ryan Dinwiddie, along with Zach Wilson, the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, in that Grey Cup where Dinwiddie got the start. Those were the 3 quarterbacks: Ryan Dinwiddie,
didn't know that.
Cliff Kingsbury, and Zach Taylor. They were on the Bombers roster, the 3 quarterbacks in that Grey Cup that they lost. Zach Taylor, head coach of the Bengals. Cliff Kingsbury was head coach with the Arizona Cardinals. And now he's I believe he's the OC with the Commanders. And I mean, he's part and parcel responsible for that turnaround and Jane Daniels' success. But on top of that, a lot of familiarity with Dallas because he is the guy that orchestrated Johnny Manziel's Heisman career at Texas A&M, I believe. So he's the type of guy that can coach a quarterback like Dak Prescott, if Dak Prescott stays there.
Interesting.
So I think Cliff Kingsbury, depending on how far Washington goes, if I'm Jerry Jones, I'm calling him because you know what? Maybe Jerry Jones doesn't want a big personality. Maybe he wants a guy that just focuses on the football. And Cliff Kingsbury quietly made a name for himself. I know there's a lot of big splashy names out there from Detroit and Minnesota, but Cliff Kingsbury, he's been a head coach. He's been responsible for some really good offenses, and he knows how to coach the modern quarterback, that athletic quarterback, the RPO option guys, and he's doing a great job of it. I mean, we saw Washington go toe-to-toe with a really good team last weekend with a rookie quarterback. So Yeah. So I don't know.
You know what? With that though, you know what, and Trey, I think it's time. Let's cue this up here. I think with that, it's time for the Blitz.
Let's do it.
Time for the Chevy and Nasty Blitz.
All right. Am I starting or you starting?
Yeah, you started off.
So listen, we talked about it. We just mentioned Dallas Cowboys, fire Mike McCarthy. It's a tough job to go to. A lot of spotlight, a lot of pressure, but also a lot of personality with Jerry Jones there. My question to you, Deion Sanders coaching at Colorado, is it prime time for him to step up the big leagues and take over as a head coach of the Cowboys? You tell me.
See, and that's what interested me about what you're saying right before we got to the Blitz, talking about how, well, maybe Jerry doesn't want a big personality. But I'll tell you what, if you get Deion in there, you've got massive personality coming and a guy that really believes in his own way. Will that fly under Jerry Jones? You know, I don't know. Does Jerry Jones strike you as the kind of guy to be nostalgic? Can I bring back some of that greatness? And the Cowboys haven't really seen that greatness since those days of the 90s. Will you bring that back just to get a new, fresh approach on it? And would Deion be willing to take it? I don't know. I think that one's interesting. Personally, even when Deion signed with Colorado, I thought it was just a big name making a big move. I've always kind of cheered against him just because I'm not into the flashy personality kind of thing. But when you take a look at what this guy's been able to do in the NCAA in just a couple of seasons, I mean, he's obviously knows the lay of the land. He went there and built the Colorado Buffaloes purely through bringing in through the transfer portal, picking his guys. He knows how to make moves. He knows how to track guys, and he knows how to keep his star players happy. That could be interesting. Do I think Jerry Jones will do it? No, I think it's a really risky move to bring on a rookie coach. I mean, Jerry's not just messing around. But I will say this: if there is a personality that's out there, maybe Jerry Jones will give one a shot.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that Deion's making a lot of money in Colorado. He's coaching his boys. They're ready to move on. I think if Deion could get a couple of those Colorado kids that he truly believes in to the Dallas Cowboys, there's a situation where I could see him going, listen, Deion has cemented his status that he can always go back to college. He can always go back to college, and a lot of speculation that Deion will eventually wind up back at his alma mater, Florida State. Maybe not right now, but I think right now would be the perfect opportunity for him to jump to the NFL, check it out, see if he does okay, a couple of years, maybe 3 years. And if it doesn't work out, he can go back to college. And so I think it's a great opportunity. I think Jerry Jones loves it's a personality that he knows. You know, we're not talking about him bringing in a personality.
And he's won with.
And I think those things hold a lot of weight with Jerry. Jerry's a very loyal guy. If you're one of Jerry's guys, you're a Cowboy forever. I remember when I got cut, I'll tell the story, and I think I've said this. When I got cut, of all the times I've been cut in the pros, when I got cut by the Cowboys, Jerry Jones called me 3 days later. He said, listen, I'm apologizing to you. I wanted to keep you, but I had to side with my coaches. They made a decision, and I can't kick the captains off the ship because we got to steer this thing. He's like, but I promise you this, you're a Cowboy to me. And he's like, once you're a Cowboy, you're always a Cowboy, and I'll have your back. And I thought, okay, that was nice of him to say. I didn't think anything of it. But 3 years later, right after they fired Dave Campo, I was one of the first people they called when I arrived in Calgary. I had already signed my deal in Calgary. And he said, everyone's gone that threw you under the bus. How would you like to be a Cowboy again? And as much as I wanted to, I had just signed my deal in Calgary. But that, for all the show and everything you see and the decisions, and last week he was my dud, I still remember that. And so for a guy like Deion Sanders, he's still a Cowboy. Let's move on to the next Blitz question. Nasty, the next Blitz question that I got for you is, or no, you got to ask me the question.
I just asked you. No, you asked me that question. I just threw it back to you. You went to, no. You asked me.
Yeah, you got to ask
me.
Yeah,
you asked me. You asked me.
Okay, listen. After a really impressive season, listen, last year we saw Sam Darnold as a backup to Brock Purdy in the 49ers offseason. The Vikings get rid of Kirk Cousins. They signed Sam Darnold as a backup to J.J. McCarthy, who winds up having multiple knee surgeries. Darnold comes in and not only performs admirably, he was exceptional. He was quite exceptional, especially at the beginning of the season when people didn't believe it. He was doing it week in, week out. But unfortunately, the last 2 weeks when it counted most, when the conference champion was on the line, he couldn't pull it off against Detroit. And then this past weekend or last night against the Rams, he just fell short. Did he play out of Minnesota, or do the Vikings bring him back for one more season to see, hey, maybe this guy's got something and we didn't give him long enough?
Well, I think you know what the answer to that one is.
I don't.
It's what's it going to cost us, right? Because he was the story of the for most of the regular season, right? He did a great job this year until he didn't. And it is really concerning, like what we saw this weekend. And I didn't take the Detroit game too seriously, because you never know what teams. Well, no, they were playing for the bye, right? But they got picked up. He got totally picked apart in that game. This week, sacked 9 times. He had offensive problems. He looked like he was like the deer in the headlights, where he was missing receivers, overthrowing them, throwing behind him. He showed that he's an awesome candidate in the regular season, but the playoffs, I don't think he's sold anybody on it yet. So if I'm the Vikings right now, JJ McCarthy is my guy, right?
But yeah, I guess he's your guy, but it goes back to my problem with the draft. You draft guys based on what they did in college, having no idea what they're going to do in the pros, and you're putting all your eggs in that basket, and you're willing to trade 14 wins for
You're not trading though. He's a free agent. I think his contract's up.
But I'm saying what you have, bird in hand. You're willing to trade off 14 wins for an unknown commodity.
They did it last year.
That's injured. That's injured. That's injured.
They did it last. That's where it comes back to me though, Chev. It's really just about money, right? If we talk about even the CFL, with Fajardo and some of these guys, listen, if it's not going to cost us too much, great. We want to start promoting the future. But if our future doesn't work out, if our scouting crystal ball and our gods weren't on our side this year, then we've still got options. JJ McCarthy is the future. They just got to figure out a solution of a reasonable mentor or backup.
Yeah, Trey and I never really agree on anything. He says 14 wins are great, but 0 big time wins. I mean, Kirk Cousins, he didn't win any big time games until he did. Not everyone wins the Super Bowl.
But they've been slowly building up that, like the defense had a pretty great year. They've got outstanding.
I get it. I get it. Pro sports is like the information age. It's win right now or else. And I guess that's the way it is when you invest money and you got cap stuff. But it's ridiculous spending, and that's where the world's gone. But Sam Darnold did pretty good. If I'm a GM, I give him another year. We got JJ McCarthy. We don't even know what we have with him.
I was signed. The question is, how much are you going to pay him?
Yeah.
Right? I think I heard the Vikings have something like $70 million on the cap right now with some of the cap they're losing. That you can do a lot with $70 million in terms of upgrading your overall level or going out and finding another star. And here's the thing with Darnold, he will get paid after the season.
Yeah, but Trey's saying that he got sacked. He's got sacked. 20 times in the last 2 weeks? Well, whose fault is that? I get he holds on to the ball a little bit longer than a lot of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But maybe you go invest in an offensive lineman. If you got a 14-win quarterback that gets sacked 20 times, maybe you get a 16-win quarterback if he gets sacked 9 times. I just
need somebody that gets me to the playoffs and can and knows what to do when the bullets are flying live. Chev, question for you. We talked about it earlier. The NFL moves the Rams game from LA to Arizona. They end up sacking Darnold 9 times as we were talking about that. They're getting some real momentum going here. Is this enough for them? They're going through a lot of adversity at home. They just played an amazing effort on a neutral stadium. Is this the kind of momentum that can carry them past the Eagles this week?
You know what? I was thinking about that when we're doing our predictions, and that's why I said I'd think about it later. But I do think so. This is a big deal, right? Like I remember back to 9/11. And the U.S. got real patriotic in a hurry, right? There was sort of a lull in the U.S. national pride and all that, and then 9/11 happened, and people got real patriotic in a hurry. And guess who won that year? The Patriots. Yeah. And everyone said it was scripted and all that. I don't think it was scripted, but it just happened to be. There was some momentum, and this whole thing with LA, and not to say that this is what comes out of it. But I find sometimes moments like these seem to galvanize sports teams. Like, hey, let's play for our people. Let's play. They got a little bit of extra oomph. And I could see that maybe this is something. This could be my bandwagon team I'm looking for. You know, the team that's not just playing for themselves and their personal glory.
It's bigger than that.
It's bigger than them. Like, let's bring something home to LA that the people can look to as a beacon. So for me, you know what? And they're not a chump team. Like, this is Matt Stafford. This is Puka Nacua. This is Cooper Kupp. There's some good guys. That defensive line got 9 sacks last night. If they keep that up, there's no one that could stop them. And all you need is a little bit of confidence and a little bit of momentum in the playoffs, and you never know what happens. So you answer your question. I think what's going on in LA right now, as unfortunate as it is, with where they are positioned and the guy they have at the helm, Matt Stafford, I think he's a great quarterback. He's won a Super Bowl. I think this can definitely push them past the Eagles and maybe make them a contender. They might be my team that could beat the Lions if they get there. That's what I'm saying.
Didn't New Orleans go on a tear after Hurricane Katrina? Or am I remembering that wrong?
No, you know what? I think you're right.
I think they took it. I don't remember they won that year, but yeah, it's amazing what you play for your jobs, you play for professional pride and for championships. But I'm with you. I think a certain thing about momentum, playing for something bigger than just when you're truly playing for your community, I think it means a lot more to the guys. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. You know what, Sheldon? Let's not even do the last one. We're going to take a quick break here. We'll get back. We'll get to our studs and duds. We'll wrap it up. We're coming up against the hour. Thanks for all the comments. I see them all flowing. Rubio, nice to see you on the show. Jamin, a little back and forth. I love it. Everything's inspiring conversation. And you know what they say? Great stories inspire great conversations. This is The Ride. We'll be right back.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
Do you want your business to be known? YYCCalgaryBusiness.ca is Calgary's only online media platform that gets you noticed. Short-form video content is rapidly taking over as the most effective way to engage your audience. Whether you're being interviewed on a vodcast, sharing a sizzle reel, or even hosting your own show, there is one place you can publicize your business. We want to tell your story and introduce you to our network of empowered business owners and leaders right here in Calgary. Isn't it time you took your digital game to 11? Call us or email us now.
Hey, you made it to your chair. It's the ride
of course.
with Chevy and Nasty. We're going to start taking some bets. Listen, guys, a lot of great chatter there. Rubio made a great point about the last point. The LA Rams moved to State Farm Stadium, the same insurance company that pulls out of LA and left a lot of people out of fires. Isn't that ironic? And then Trey sent me a note during the break. He thinks I hate young quarterbacks. No, Trey, I don't hate young quarterbacks.
Let me correct that. You just hate quarterbacks named Young.
No, I like quarterbacks named Young. In fact, Bryce Young did pretty well this year. What I don't like is teams I don't like the system. Young, good quarterbacks go to terrible teams. Therefore, there's a lot of pressure on them from the management and the fans to jump in, and guess what they become? They become busts. They become Sam Darnolds. They become Geno Smiths. They become Mitch Trubisky's. They become Caleb Williams, Justin Fields, all those guys that get thrust in too early and are not ready, and they become busts
with the wrong support and the wrong features around them, the wrong systems.
I am not, and you know what? I know Trey's mad at me because he thinks that I don't like having Trey Ford in Edmonton. And when I say it's a great deal that they signed Cody Fajardo to back him up, Trey thinks that's threatening to Trey Ford.
Well, 100% it is. Right. But if I'm now as a fan, I want to see my favorite players be the best.
Yes.
But the fact of the matter is, if I'm the GM, you don't have that luxury. I mean, you know how easy it is to get cut or traded in any pro sports league. The same holds true for coaches and GMs. Our jobs rely on each other. And even my job as a defensive lineman relies on how well Henry played in the playoffs that year.
That's right. And if Henry's not playing well in the playoffs, you better hope that Danny Wimprine, you better hope that Danny McManus, Jason Gesser, whoever the heck was the backup to Henry Burst for all those years can step in and win games when he can't. And if you don't have that, I asked Trey the question the other day, who would you have back up Trey Ford in case he fails? So Trey, I love you, but I don't hate young quarterbacks. They just need the right type of development, to get them to where they need to be so they can be successful when the guy who's there decides that it's time to hang him up or the team moves on from him. You know what? The Green Bay Packers did it well for years. When Brett Favre was there and they drafted Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers had to wait his turn. And as much as there was pressure from him, Brett Favre was still at the top of his game. By the time Aaron Rodgers came in, he was a pretty damn good quarterback. And now the same thing is happening with Love in Green Bay. They do it right. The teams that do it wrong do what Chicago does. Let's draft the next guy. And then they just flush everyone and you ruin careers. And, you get guys like me that buy a jersey and then they got thrown away because you traded the first round draft pick.
You heard it from Chevy first, guys. Aaron Rodgers will be signing this offseason with the Minnesota Vikings. Great call, Chev. I love it.
No, the Edmonton Elks.
Edmonton Elks. There you go.
Trey,
studs and duds. You guys ready to go?
Studs and duds.
Okay, I'm going to make this quick. My stud of the week, because I love the Montreal Canadiens. I'm going to take it to the ice. Prospect, 19-year-old Ivan Demidov is a danger. 14 goals for a 19-year-old in the KHL. The KHL is the Russian version of the NHL. Yeah, they don't have all the best players in the world, but they got some of the damn best players in the world. And this 19-year-old, he's got 14 goals, I believe, in 19 games. And he's 19 years old. But watch this goal that he put. Watch this clinic he put on the other night. This is my stud. Look at this. Flips it around, turns around, 4 guys, top shot, steals the puck. This is a boy. I mean, he's 19, but Habs prospect. My Montreal Canadiens have some great players with Patrick Laine, Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, Kirby Doc. And if this guy comes in the lineup in the next year or two, they could be a serious contender. They're probably going to have a glut of talent. They're going to start trading some prospects for maybe a goalie or a defenseman. But look at that goal. Top cheese.
Serious skill. And that's a good league. So so hopefully that will translate for the Habs. My stud of the week, again, I'm going to keep, last week it was Jacob Kozak wrestling out of Saskatoon that won the U19 tournament. Just an update to that. He was in Vancouver this weekend and he won the U17 tournament. Didn't give up a point the entire tournament. So this kid out of Saskatoon, guys, keep watching him. He's going to be representing Canada here in the next 2-3 years. I'm sure of it. But my stud, another local-ish story. I don't even know how to say this for sure. Elik Aon Manor. A kid out of Medicine Hat, Alberta, played his high school, started in Medicine Hat, ended up going to prep schools in the States. He's now at Stanford. And in his 3rd year, he just declared himself eligible for the draft. He doesn't even need his last year, but he was named to the what's it called? The Senior Bowl, the NCAA Senior Bowl, which is really cool. A kid, again, from a small market, Medicine Hat, makes it down there, Stanford, one of the most academically difficult schools and an amazing football program, is on his way to the Senior Bowl and projected in the in the 2nd round, maybe the 3rd round of the NFL draft. Another Alberta kid doing good down in the States. Elik, man, I wish you nothing but the best. I look forward to watching this kid.
Yeah, it's always good to see Canadian kids go down south. You had that experience. I still can't imagine what it's like for
It was rare
for a
then.
Canadian kid. Yeah, it's rare then. It's still pretty rare now, but it's happening more. But to stand out among the talent that's down there and getting his opportunity, that's pretty cool. Why don't you hit us with your dud first, then I'll hit with mine.
Oh, God. Okay, we're talking Wildfires, and all the respect in the world for the frontline fighters and the people defending their own homes. But this one kind of caught me a little bit. And I know you're not a huge fan of Trump, but Trump, since the fires, and I think it was 2017 or 2018, went to California and said, guys, you got to get your act together. Great. Call it climate change. Climate change does not stop you from having to do what it takes to protect your state. And here in the last few months, Gavin's been going on all across his media campaign saying, we're going to Trump-proof California. We're going to stand in his way and keep him from putting in his policies into our state, when he should have been fireproof in California, because California's been going through this for years. Back in the 80s, so many of these celebrities that came out and have been there for a while said, up until the mid 80s, you would see cut lines through the forest. You would see crews clearing out brush underneath, and you would see the preemptive fires to burn out all the undergrowth. This guy loves the spotlight. He loves the stylish clothes. I wouldn't be surprised if him and Trudeau are comparing notes on socks, shopping from the same stores. I think this was a real opportunity for a state leader. When you take a look at from 9/11 to Mayor Nenshi in Calgary, when he did a really good job in 2011, to so many people that showed great leadership, he's just on a PR campaign right now. And it feels like every decision that he has made up to this point was wrong, and the people of California are hurting for it. And it's a shame. Good people, good workers, bad leadership and bad direction gets you just in the absolute tank. And what California is going through right now, I'm not even sure that the current leadership gets how badly they foinked this one up.
Yeah, well, a lot of people out of houses because of that. And it's unfortunate that there is a political backdrop to this.
It's not a political backdrop. This is no more political than when we talk about a good coach or a bad coach.
Yeah, no,
that's
absolutely.
A bad leader.
Yeah, that's a bad leader. But right now, the product of his bad decisions is not a lost game, right? And that's the crappy. It's people's lives. And that's very dudlish. That's very duddish. My dud is on a little lighter note. Sheldon, you get an email or a direct message from Brad Pitt's mom saying that he's in the hospital and the only way he could be saved is through your money. Are you sending $10,000 to Brad Pitt if he reached out to you?
The very next minute. Even because in that case, Chevy, first off, the answer is probably no. But if the story was good, and look at those pictures, those aren't AI generated at all. As a photographer, those are not photoshopped images. My heart goes out to Brad there right now. But it's the funny thing about the same reason why we bet on underdogs and these things. You hope so bad that they're true, and maybe I am special. This was a sad case. Go on and tell the rest of your story.
Yeah. So a French woman was swindled out of over $800,000. She was initially contacted by a scammer purporting to be Brad Pitt's mom, saying that he needed some help with some medical bills, as you see him. And then this fake romance started, to the point where this lady left her husband, fully believing that she was in a romantic relationship with Brad Pitt. And this has happened, though. This has not just happened here. Like, I did a bit of research recently. Lady got swindled out of about 10 grand because fake Alan Jackson, country legend Alan Jackson, called her and asked for money. So this is going on. It's I don't know if the dud is the people that get sucked in or the dud is a scandal, because look at Manti Te'o. We talk about athletes. There's a whole Netflix documentary on the former NFLer who, when he was in Notre Dame, had a fake girlfriend who was fake dying of cancer, and he was fake supporting her. And he never met her.
And it was a fake girl. It was a dude.
It was a dude. So yeah, these things happen.
Yeah.
I would love to say, hey, like, you got to be ridiculous, but I've seen people swindled by love too, and I guess the dud is the people that prey on people. But this story's kind of weird. Like Brad Pitt, like really, Brad Pitt's
Yeah.
like messaging you. Man, listen,
You know what I think? I think it's a volume game though. Like I read, you know how like you used to get those emails, those phishing emails. I'm the Prince of Nigeria, and everything would be spelt poorly. And they're like, "Come on, guys, such a big scam. Why don't you guys like at least pick up your game?" And the answer was, "We don't want to. We're not trying to trick people that can't be tricked. When we send out 10,000 of these probes, we want to catch the 1% at the bottom that just doesn't get it, are going through something in their current lives, and those are the people we want to get. If they get, if we get a hook on the first cast." We know exactly what to do to get them reeled in. And I think just sadly, not everybody is as tech savvy or reality aware as most of the people you think should be in this society. So
well, I think
it's not all the way around.
I think there's a movie that addresses this. It's called The Beekeeper with Jason Statham. It's an action movie where he's a beekeeper living with an old lady. And
you watched that?
Well, I saw the preview of this, and it's actually a funny story. So I'm watching the preview of this with my son. It's like Jason Statham is the beekeeper, and he's living with this old lady, and she gets swindled out of her money, and all of a sudden she kills herself, right? So he goes to the place where they swindled her from. He tracks him down, finds out it's like this huge organization. It's bigger than just scamming money. The government's involved, and like you watched a preview for this movie, and it's like brought to you by the director of Suicide Squad, David Ayer, and Jason Statham is the beekeeper, and he's got his one-liners. Anyways, long story short, I watched that preview, and then I'm on Twitter, and I see a preview for a movie that's coming out next month, and it's called The Working Man, and it's featuring Jason Statham, and Jason Statham is a working man working at a construction site, and then he witnesses someone getting beaten up, and he finds out that the owner's daughter got kidnapped, and then it's a child trafficking thing. Brought to you by the director of Suicide Squad, Dave, and it was literally the same preview.
Totally.
It was. I swear to God, I was watching this with my son Kyle. I'm like, Kyle, did we just watch the same preview for two different movies that came out? I think Beekeeper came out last year. It's basically about a guy fighting back against scams, and then this one was about Jason Statham fighting against child trafficking, which is bigger. It's bigger than just the guys that kid. And it was like literally the same preview, just
but are you okay with that? Because I am, like, I'm for whatever reason, I'm not a Jason Statham fan. It's just something about his early movies never connected with me, so I kind of just pass them by. But you know who I do like? Liam Neeson. You're talking about some quality acting now. Well, he plays the same role every movie, but I love it.
But guess what? After watching those two previews, I was with Kyle. We were coming home from the gym. After watching those previews, I was like, Kyle, you want to watch a revenge movie? Let's go watch Taken.
Yeah.
With a particular set of skills that I've been refining over years. And when I find you, I'm going to kill you. Daryl McAvena, he watched The Beekeeper. He says it's a great movie. I believe it's on Amazon, but I'm going to watch it because I love those revenge movies. You talk about Taken. You talk about John Wick.
Yeah.
You ever remember Payback with Mel Gibson?
Oh, for sure.
One of the greatest revenge movies. Yeah. There's so many good revenge
movies. But
John
Wick was the best because it was all about the dog. It killed the wrong dog on the wrong day.
Yeah.
And it all went to hell. Oh, actually, I think it started with the car. But
you know what, Sheldon? We had so much we were going to cover today. I don't think we're going to cover what we're going to cover because we're pretty much done. I mean,
for next week.
We could save it for next week. I like talking about movies. We got everyone in the okay. Before we go, we don't need any graphics on this. We went off on a bit of a tangent, but that's what we do. Trey's with us. I want to know in the comments, what are some of your favorite revenge movies? Like anyone thinking right now, we talked about Taken. We talked about Payback. We talked about John Wick. Are there any other out there? You can't talk about revenge movies without talking about old Clint Eastwood movies. Pale Rider, Fistful of Dollars, A Few More Dollars. Those are all spaghetti Western revenge movies. I love that stuff. Those movies.
Do you remember? Tell me if this fits into the category. Remember Last of the Mohicans? Right? Yeah. With that epic dun, 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 dun. I don't know if it was revenge, but they took his girl. They're going to get her. And they whisked her off to the fort. And Daniel Day-Lewis just tells her right before, just stay alive. I will find you. Stay alive. And things like that were epic. And to me, that's like the particular set of skills. And I'm a sucker for that shit.
Gladiator was a
Yeah,
great revenge
totally.
movie.
Yeah,
Braveheart,
totally.
but he died.
Yeah,
But
well,
they all
even
died.
Lethal Weapon and some of the little one-liners and stuff they come up
Yeah.
with throughout the movie. It's not exactly a, but I'll tell you what, I think we could do an entire like series on those awesome 80s movies.
Rob Evans, Return of the Jedi.
yeah, there you go. Yep.
You know what? Daryl asked a question. Landman, if have you guys gotten through Landman? Anybody watching? That's like our not our Chevy and Nasty book club, but our movie club. You guys got to watch this. I finally watched a few more episodes this weekend. The one-liners are killing me. The stuff that's going on between him and his daughter and his ex-wife. Like the drama of the show is one thing that's really good, but it's the one-liners. Billy Bob, whoever, like Sheridan, is it Taylor Sheridan writing this? I don't know if he writes the script for it, but man, it is killing me. I'm a dialogue guy. Like you talk about, some of my favorite movies are all the old Quentin Tarantino movies. Why? Because nothing happens; they just talk. But this Taylor Sheridan Landman one is killing me. The dialogue, the Billy Bob Thornton interactions are awesome. I think our dialogue's pretty good sometimes too. But
yeah, I think so. But I think right now I'm reading the script. I think it's time just about to wrap it up. But I'm going to give, like you gave Trey a hard time tonight. Maybe he's giving you a hard time about your picks and quarterbacks. But I will give Trey this. I don't know if it made it onto the chat line up here, but he picked his best movie ever. And Trey, I got to say, I agree with this one. I wasn't as much of a golfer as you were, but you remember the 90s? Tin freaking Cup. Remember Tin
I
Cup?
didn't see that. That was that Billy Bob Thornton and
no, it was Don Johnson and Rene Russo was his love interest, and Scooter
John
McGavin.
Cusack?
Wait, no,
John
that was a
John Cusack. Was that in?
or yeah, Kevin Costner. Kevin Costner. Yeah, Kevin Costner.
No,
It's honestly one of the best underrated movies of all time. Although I think a lot of people, it's their cult favorite, but it really is a movie worth checking out. Tin Cup, Kevin Costner, Don Johnson, or was it Don Johnson? I think it was Don Johnson. Amazing movie. But guys, I think that's all the time we have for this week. As always, guys, thanks for joining us in the new year. Chevy and I are still having a blast with this, and we do this because you guys come on. I love the dialogue going on. Remember, guys, help us grow the channel. You can I'm sure you're already subscribed. If you're not, please hit the subscribe button. And when you see our social medias coming out, when we're announcing the next episode or one of the topics that you like, go ahead and share that out to your network. We want to grow this thing, and we want to do it with you guys, and we need your help. Anyway, that's all we got for this week. You know where to find us, at Chevy and Nasty on all major social media platforms. That's it for this week, guys. We are out.